Welcome, guys. This is the Stephan Livera podcast. This is episode 63. We are focused on Bitcoin and Austrian economics. Today, we've got a fantastic guest. He has been setting the world alight with some of his fantastic Bitcoin and Lightning-powered gaming, which started, well, what we know of, most of us know him for, is Satoshi's Place, which was this awesome online pixel drawing thing where you can pay with Satoshis. And now he's taking that to the next level with Lightning Chess and his broader business or venture, which is Koala Studio. So my guest is LightningK0ala. Welcome to the show.
Hey guys, it's amazing to be here. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, look, I think you've been doing some fantastic stuff. I thought it would be great to just have a chat with you and just get you to share some of your insights on your background into Lightning development.
Sure. Yeah. I can get started with my background. So my first experience with Lightning was actually with Zap Wallet by Jack Mallers. And so this was probably end of 2016, I think. I synced it with testnet. I tried opening some channels, and I was playing around with the Eclair Explorer, which was one of the first web explorers for looking at Lightning nodes and stuff. And then eventually back in January 2018, I set up some LND nodes, and I just wanted to test the throughput on a single channel between two nodes, because I was just curious to get a sense of like how far the implementations had gone. And also people were talking about microtransactions and like low fees and stuff. So I just wanted to see like how many transactions per second I could get. And I really can't remember the number now, but I remember I was really impressed at the time. And I just thought like, wow, like this looks like it's gonna be able to do some really cool stuff. So I started thinking about like what kind of applications could we use to more like to showcase like the technology. And so I started thinking about things like Street Fighter, where maybe you could have like some punches like equating to a payment, or and then one which I got really actually started like building a prototype for was like a Make It Rain application with Satoshi. So the idea would be to have people sort of like, imagine you'd be like presenting something at a conference, and then people will just like connect to you, and then you'd be able to like throw them Satoshis on this application. So since we're live streaming, I want to show you a little demo of that. So
yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
Sure. So let me just wrestle technology here. Okay. So can you see that?
Yeah. Okay. So just for the audio listeners, just talk through what is showing on screen as well.
Sure. So right now I'm on a page. We can include the link in the description for the episode, but it's essentially just like a black screen with a white square in the middle, and it's kind of like 3D. So it's like a platform, and sitting in the middle of that, let's say it's a table. There's a Bitcoin coin, and the idea is that you can just click the coin. Eventually it'd be like swipe, and then it would just like throw the coin. So if I click the coin, I don't know if the audience can sound.
I spent a lot of time the Bitcoin.
Yeah, and you could just kind of like make it rain like that. So, so I spent a lot of time and effort making the sound effects for that. But we'll leave the link, and for people who can't see it, they'll be able to like check it out. So I'll turn that off now. Let's see. Yeah. So the idea with that little demo was just to kind of to throw Satoshis at people and to show how like quickly it would be done. But the issue was that back then I was like, oh, hang on, we're gonna have to like open channels with people, and there's gonna have to be liquidity and so forth. And so I very quickly like dropped the idea, because I realized it would actually be quite hard to execute it, at least at the state of affairs back then. So I kept at it, and I eventually came to the idea of building Satoshi's Place, which was heavily inspired on Reddit Place, which was this thing that Reddit did for April Fool's Day, I think in 2016. which in its turn was also inspired in the $1 Million Homepage, which is a much older project. I wasn't actually aware of the $1 Million Homepage, but Reddit Place was really cool. Like, it lasted for about 4 or 5 days, and there was all these people like painting pixels on the canvas, but there was no payments involved. It was just like each account could paint 1 pixel per 5 minutes, I think. There's a funny story because the engineers kind of spoke about how they were trying to like keep their servers from catching fire when this thing went off, because it was like very, very there was a lot of traffic, and so that timer that they had was actually, they were tweaking that to kind of sort of filter the amount of people that were coming through, interestingly enough. So anyway, Satoshi's Place was inspired on that, and the idea was that I wanted people who had never used Lightning to have a place where they can go and experience it on an application level. So for somebody who had just like downloaded a wallet like Eclair or Zap, they would have a place to go and like try this thing out. And at the time, like, there was already places like Y'all's and maybe like 1 or 2 other places, but I wanted like the like dirt cheap, like bottom, like hitting the bottom like of the kind of price. And of course you can go lower with millisats, but I thought Satoshi's was probably a good one, a good place to start.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I think it's really cool that for a lot of people, seeing is believing. So for them being able to have, on their phone, here's my whatever, however many Satoshis I've got, and I click these pixels on Satoshi's Place, and then I pay, scan it, off it goes, and it's done. And for a lot of people, I think it's funny because for many of us who have, like, for people who have been around in Bitcoin for a while, sending their first Lightning payment is kind of similar. There's analogies to sending your first Bitcoin payment. There's that sense of magic around it. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it makes you feel giddy, just kind of like playing with this thing. It's like sending email back in like the early 90s or late 80s, I guess. I don't know. Like, do you mean like in terms of the experience? Like,
yeah, exactly. Like, because it's just. Because many of people who are used to Bitcoin, they sort of know it, well, before Lightning, they had, there were always these kind of niggling issues with doing on-chain payments for kind of low value, right? Because it wouldn't confirm immediately. You might have to, just around some of that difficulty of the transaction may have been broadcast onto the network, but it has not yet been confirmed into a block. Whereas with a Lightning payment, obviously, we know it is, in a sense, it can be kind of settled back into a block, when you need it to. And so I think there's a certain power to that. So,
yeah, the experience is more instantly gratifying, I guess, because even though you can detect an on-chain transaction when it's, when it gets propagated, but it hasn't been confirmed yet, you could treat that as sort of like that dopamine release of like, hey, it's working. But with Lightning, it feels a little bit more real, and also the fact that it's so cheap, so it really doesn't hurt as much, I guess, in terms of like, oh, I just spent 5 cents to do this, to send like a, I don't know, $1 transaction. If you go much lower, it doesn't make sense anymore, right? But back in the day with Bitcoin, that was kind of the same feeling, because the fiat value of Bitcoin wasn't so high, right? So I think this is what we're seeing around with the tipping as well. Like, it's almost like Lightning has brought back this culture of just giving Bitcoin away, giving sats away now. And yeah, it's poetic. It's quite beautiful to see that coming back.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so tell us a little bit about, I guess, why are you, because you're building on Bitcoin and Lightning, right? So in order to do that, you must be fundamentally bullish on the technology. Tell us why.
Yeah, it's so hard. For the audience, like, Stephan sent me this question, and I struggle a lot to prepare for it, because I think there's so much to be bullish on it, but it's really hard to me to like pinpoint the exact fundamental, but I'll try. So I think let's say like on a monetary level, I'm really bullish because of the fact that Bitcoin is following the principles of sound money. And I think we've reached a Schelling point around the 21 million cap. And you know, like how the Yang thing that's going on in the US now?
The Yang Gang thing, yeah.
Yeah, the Yang Gang. Like one of the things he says is the trickle up effect. I like to say that the sound money is the real trickle up effect, and like the 21 million cap is that kind of the consensus rule that's going to cause that to happen. And so yeah, I think the impact on society in that respect is going to be tremendous. I won't go into that. There's much better people to talk about that, I think. But on a technical level, what makes that possible is the fact that I see the protocol evolving in ways that improve the ability for users to run their own full nodes, as in, you know, don't trust but verify. But equally, there's also amazing progress towards privacy. And I think these two factors combined contribute towards the ability to ossify the consensus layer, and which eventually allows us to start building on top of it. Because, you know, I mean, speaking from a personal experience as an engineer, you don't want to build on a foundation that is not stable, right? You don't want to build on a protocol that's not going to be around for the next 10 or 20 years, right? So I think that's really bullish. And yeah, and so we're seeing that with like second layer protocols like Lightning and Liquid. And overall, you know, the way the protocol stack is evolving is following the principles of the Unix philosophy, which is all about minimalist modular software. So, you know, those two things combined, they're kind of like complement each other, but because of the incentives. But essentially, that was my attempt to answer this question.
Yeah, sure. No, I think there's a lot you're getting at there, and we can sort of pull some of these apart and see in practice how that's happening, right? So a couple examples that might have come up in some of my recent episodes as well is like we're starting to see different sort of technology stacks evolving within Bitcoin, right? So you can kind of have Bitcoin Core, LND, and then set up Zap and Joule, and that's kind of one pathway. Or you can kind of have Bitcoin Core and then C Lightning and then Spark Wallet. And, you know, you can set up there's different kinds of stacks, and all these kind of different pieces of software can kind of all connect to each other and be used in this kind of way that creates a overall really amazing outcome.
Yeah, and that's how the internet is built. So it makes sense to mimic that that process in Bitcoin. So
yeah, exactly. So look, let's talk a little bit about Satoshi's place. So, I mean, you mentioned a little bit around the background of it, but how about, you know, some of the hardware and the software setup, and maybe any challenges that you faced in creating Satoshi's place?
Sure. So my background is as an electronic engineer. I used to be a hardware designer like over 10 years ago, but since then I've focused mostly on just software. But you know, single board computers, Raspberry Pis, those are things that I like to tinker with and I like to play around with. So back then when I was starting to build Satoshi's place, I made it like my own objective to say, okay, I want to build this. I want to run the Lightning part daemon on my own node at home. Like I want to try and do that. So with Satoshi's place, I use C Lightning because at the time LND hadn't yet implemented support for Bitcoin Core. I think it was only using BTCD shortly after they added support, but that was my decision back then. And then in terms of the single board computer, like I felt like the Raspberry Pi was probably going to be not weak, but like
a little underpowered, yeah.
Yeah, a little underpowered, and I just shopped around for some options, and one of the options was Odroid. They have a single board computer with 2 gigs RAM, and yeah, it seemed like a better choice. Actually, the Rock64 is also a really good choice, which I believe you have.
Nodal. Yeah, that's right.
So so yeah, that was the hardware part. You know, then I had to like get a fixed IP and like set it up at home, and there's like all the things involved with doing that, and yeah, and then but the application itself is in the cloud, right? So even though the node is my own, I'm running in my own network. The application is sort of deployed in the cloud because that's just the way I build software and I'm used to doing it. And I'm glad I did, because like in the peak of like the traffic that was happening at Satoshi's place, there was over 10,000 people visiting the site, and there's a lot of people hitting the backend server. And so I built it so it was kind of like load balanced on like multiple containers that could just be like added on demand. So yeah, but the actual payment processing was being done at home, which yeah, that's basically the stack.
Okay. So if I could summarize that, then it's kind of like you were kind of making it in line with that Bitcoiner ethos, which we talk about, which is you should run, ideally you run the software in such a way where you hold the keys and you are validating fully, right? So that's kind of the self-sovereign, fully validating component. But then what you were doing is setting up such that the software was running on the cloud, or running on a cloud, like VPS servers. But then the payments that were coming through were still coming through to your own node. So that's kind of really in line with the ethos. And I think that was the thing with Satoshi's place is it was really cool, because perhaps that was what helped prove out that there can be some kind of demand for this in the years to come. So what was it about this that made you believe, okay, there's a future opportunity here?
In Lightning, I mean, so Adam Back's like Hashcash thing with like trying to solve the issue of like email spam, and I think to me like Lightning represents a form of using Bitcoin that can potentially solve that problem. So this is part of like why I built Satoshi's place, is I just wanted to see like, is this concept of like using microtransactions feasible, right? And so yeah, I think that that's the really interesting application of it. There's a lot of things related to like whether or not we actually want to use microtransactions in certain applications. Like you wouldn't really want to pay for each second of Netflix that you watch. Maybe people tend to prefer like subscription services in those cases, but certainly in and maybe that's not always going to be the case. Like I think that sort of consumer patterns and like the way people's preferences change over time. So I wouldn't say like that's going to be like always the case. Maybe in some future where people are like half man, half robot, maybe we have enough processing capacity to do those kind of things. I don't know. But certainly in a machine-to-machine payments world, it makes a lot of sense, right? So, I'm thinking like with the work ShirtBits is doing, where they're trying to like use Lightning to monetize APIs and so forth. I think like the granularity that a payment network such as Lightning provides for machine-to-machine payments makes a lot of sense, because for a machine to like process a micropayment or do the accounting for a micropayment isn't as mentally taxing for a human, right? So now you suddenly have this ability to do like high-resolution payments. So that's one element of it. The other, going back to the Hashcash thing, like the spam thing is like, well, the Hashcash thing was trying to solve it with proof of work, but now we have a digitally native money and we have the ability to do micropayments and at really high velocity. I mean, I joke about like Keynesian economists saying like talking about velocity of money. It's like they haven't seen velocity of money yet. Like,
right.
Like real velocity of money with Lightning.
Yeah, it's very monetarist and Keynesian idea, of these kind of velocity of money ideas. Although the Austrians have very strong critiques against that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
go on.
They haven't seen actual money velocity yet. They're about to see it with Lightning. So anyway, that's a half joke, half truth. So that's the other aspect of it. It's the fact that to combat spam. And I don't know if this is going to materialize, but you know, this whole thing of like the noise in social media and like you know, on Facebook, like fake news and so forth. Like I really do think that there might be something there where there is a way for us to attribute value to our online interactions, and then we can use that as an added filter of noise. Because right now, like, you know, you can use reputation and other things, but if we could add value as a category, not a category, but as a filter option,
Yeah.
it could complement some of these other ones. I don't know. I think there's something there.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fantastic idea because right now, even look at something like Twitter, right? There's all these bot accounts. But imagine if Twitter set it up such that for every bot, you had to pay whatever, 1,000 Satoshis, whatever that limit is, enough to make it costly for these bot farm people to set up, you know, to spin up 10,000 Twitter bots, but not so expensive that it prices out real people.
Exactly. And I mean, man, I have this problem all the time with the Satoshi's Place Telegram. I mean, it's a bit of a zombie group anyway. I don't necessarily actively promote people to go on it, but now and pretty much weekly, like some bot will jump on the chat and, you know, like spam the chat with like tokens and like I don't know, random shit. And it's like, you know, that's an automated bot that's doing something that's virtually costless, but it's costing me my time and my effort to like get rid of that. You know, in the like 30 seconds that it takes me to delete and ban and report the spam on each one of those things, like that, it didn't cost as much in for the bot, right? So yeah, I think there might be something there. I don't know. And time is the most valuable thing we have, right? So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, cool. Nice. So look, let's now go into your thoughts on Lightning Gaming and Koala Studio. So maybe just give us a bit of the context around that.
Right. So with Koala Studio, so with Lightning Gaming, the kind of the story is after Satoshi's Place validated this idea, this crazy idea that I had in my head, I went back to sort of the gaming thing, because originally I mentioned Street Fighter earlier in our chat, and you know, this idea of like player-to-player interactions, and I wanted to go back to that, and so no matter what, like I decided like I want to focus on Lightning. Like there's something really big here. I'm really interested in building on this stuff. So I quit my job back then, and I decided to just like focus my thought entirely on this. And around about that time, LightningK0ala invited me to come to the to be a mentor at the Lightning residency that they hosted last year in October. And I had to do 3 talks, so I decided to do 2 talks about Satoshi's Place, the history and the tech stack around it, and the experience. But then my 3rd talk was what I called Lightning Network Powered Games. So for that talk, I kind of delved into exploring ways that the existing gaming industry uses money, and try and like figure out where Lightning and Bitcoin can provide, you know, the 10x improvements, and in particular with player-to-player interactions. Like I wanted this whole thing where you could either wager a bet or you know, pay the other player for some kind of interaction in the game, and at the residency. There's an interesting story. Like I spoke to Jack Mallers. He was also one of the mentors there, and he told me, "Oh yeah, man, I'm gonna go play a game of chess in the parks after this." And I was like, "You're gonna do what?" and then he explained to me that you know, he's an avid chess player, and back in Chicago, he usually goes and like meets random people in parks, and then he plays them. And actually, this is interesting because I grew up in China, and I remember like seeing elderly people playing Chinese chess in the parks and like just gathering around. I was like, huh, that's a real thing. And then he said, well, I've always wanted a chess game where I could pay the other player to undo a move or extend the timer, or even just wager a bet. And I was like, aha, because I was looking for building games isn't easy. There's a lot of work into building games, and I was looking for like that game proof of concept that was like feasible for me. I'm not a game developer, so it was just like I wanted like a feasible proof of work concept that I could build these interactions in, and then that was it. Like, so when I came back from the residency, I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to focus on, and that's where I got in contact with Andre, who was one of the residents at the event, and yeah, I just said, hey man, like I'm going to do this. Do you want to help me out? And he said yes, and then he was like also busy with his work, so he had to moonlight, but essentially like in 3 months we managed to build Koala Studio and Lightning Chess. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. And so tell us about your experience so far in terms of user setup and, kind of getting people to, get into it and use it.
Yeah. So let's see. Maybe I should explain a little bit about what Koala Studio and Lightning Chess is, because people might not know. So
sure.
So the idea is that Lightning Chess is this game where you can go in and you can wager against your opponent, but then you can also pay him to undo a move, and you can pay him to undo to extend timers, right? Now the problem in this situation is that if we're doing these Lightning, and this is all microtransactions, right? So you can pay him like 1 Satoshi to undo a move, and the problem here is that if you're going to do it with Lightning channels, there's the whole setup problem. The onboarding is just a nightmare. I mean, expecting a mainstream user to like understand this stuff, to understand Bitcoin is hard. To understand Lightning is like next level, like unrealistic. So, but regardless, you still have the issue of like liquidity, right? The inbound liquidity. So, and so the reasoning was that, in real life and even in like online gaming, we always trust like this kind of authoritative server that is the arbitrator of the game, right? He will dictate the outcome of the game, and so in Lightning Chess, you trust our game, like us, to dictate whether or not you win or lose, and so if you set up a wager, for example, like, I mean, that's it. You just have to kind of trust us to dictate the outcome.
And most people are fine with that.
Yeah, it's the Oracle problem, right? And there's the incentive for us because we're providing that service. But anyway, but along with all these liquidity problems and so forth, we said, okay, well, it's really like unfeasible to expect people to be setting up channels and so forth. So we decided to set up inbuilt a custodial account in Koala Studio Lightning Chess. So the idea is that you come in with one click, it sets up an account for you. There's no email, there's no KYC, no anything, and you can just hop in a chess game, and then you can send somebody a link, and you can just play chess normally if you want, or if you want to use these interactions, then you deposit into your account, and then once you, it's like an arcade machine at that point. Like, you put some coins in the arcade machine, you play the game, but now the crucial difference is that you can withdraw the money from the arcade machine, from Koala Studio in this case. So that kind of just abstracts the complexity of setting up your Lightning nodes and having liquidity and all that stuff. And so because I wanted to make more than one game, the idea was to architect the system in a way that I could just plug in multiple games. And so the challenges in onboarding and stuff, I mean, obviously, if it's people that are already in Lightning, it's generally fine. Like, we haven't had any liquidity complaints or anything. That's been fine. But I've had actually a lot of people who like came into it because of the game. Because so my thesis is like you bring in people for the game, and then they go down the rabbit hole because of the Satoshis.
Yeah.
Right. And it's similar to Satoshi's place. Like people were using it, were like being exposed to Lightning for the first time because they saw this crazy like toilet graffiti website, and they wanted to participate in it. And then they realized, okay, like if I want to use it, I have to figure out the Satoshi's thing. And so the idea with Lightning Chess is the same thing. Like you can just go ahead and play with it. If you want to use the monetized features, then you need to figure out the Satoshi's thing. And that's the onboarding challenge that we have to solve, right? And so we created this thing like with vouchers, so we can just give people Satoshis, and it was pretty cool. Like I actually printed a couple of cards. Damn it, I don't have them here. But yeah, we printed a couple of cards and dished them out at events, sent them. We can even just send the code to people, and this would just credit them with some Satoshis in their account, and then they could just start using this stuff. And some people actually were like, okay, but how do I withdraw it, right? And so now this is the rabbit hole part. It's like, okay, well, now we need to get you to download a wallet. We need to get you to buy a Casa node. We need to, whatever the spectrum of trustlessness that you want, we need to figure something out there. And that's, I mean, I'm not going to say that we've solved that problem, but it's definitely like something that's really interesting, and we need to figure that out. In terms of onboarding, like it's the same thing, except that you can actually get started if somebody just like sends you some Satoshis on this account, right? So technically speaking, you're on a custodial account, but yeah.
Oh yeah, look, I don't think you guys should try to make everything fully non-custodial. Obviously, like it's an online site. Most people, in my view, they're comfortable with like it's not like they're putting their life savings on, right? They're putting a certain amount on the site just purely because they want to use it for the game, right? And that's just like in-game bucks in other, online games and stuff. But I think more to the Bitcoin and Lightning components of it, what we probably need to see is for some of these newer technologies coming down the line, like we are still so early, right? Because right now it's single funded channels. Once we have dual funded channels, that will help, incoming liquidity. And once we have things like AMP and splicing, all these things will come in.
Yeah, exactly. And there's some really interesting cryptographic schemes that we can do to like remove the ability for like the intermediary to even like take the funds away. So I'm like super bullish on just this general like structure. It's just that right now that's the reality. It's still early, and we needed a solution to solve that problem, right? It's essentially the fact that like you and I can enter a wager into a game, and the problem is that if you win, there might be the case where the payment cannot resolve to you. Right, and so we need that kind of like interim pot that can hold it, so you just don't, you don't lose it, and then you can just keep retrying the claim thing. But yeah, the way I see it is like there's a certain percentage of like failure rates. There's a certain failure rate in like payments right now in Lightning, and whatever that amount is, what we're going to see over time is just that amount's going to go down, 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 up until a point where it's like, less than 1%, or maybe already is, I don't know. But it's so small that it doesn't impact the user experience negatively anymore.
Yeah. And I suppose part of that then is kind of how do you take that user on the education journey, right? So maybe, I don't know, in the future, you might even do some kind of setup where they can put fiat money into the site and kind of buy their first Satoshis that way, and then take some out once they like get a Lightning wallet and so on. These are all kind of ideas that people can use.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty with it is that it's kind of like an interoperable protocol, right? So technically speaking, like we don't actually need to implement the fiat part ourselves. Like we can actually just use a third-party provider, and as long as there's like an API that we can integrate with, then that's it. That was kind of the idea with Satoshi's place as well. So I actually published the API documentation for how to like paint it programmatically. Some people actually figured it out before I published. I think Chief Lab was one of them, and they put like they painted the whole board with the FBI seizure notice for Silk Road. It was hilarious. Nobody reverted it. But the idea was that you know, I had people asking me, "Oh, can you implement a feature to you know, make it so you can lock pixels for a certain amount of satoshis or something like that?" And I was saying, look, all you need to do is write a bot that will persist your pixels, right? And then you give it a budget, and then it will like protect your pixels. In fact, with this API, and sorry, like the other thing is, for example, uploading an image. Like, yeah, I didn't implement that feature in Satoshi's place because I wanted to say, hey guys, like you can make a third-party website that offers that feature for a service, right? So you can create a website that allows you to upload a picture to Satoshi's place in a nice UI, and then you basically you get a payment request from Satoshi's place, and then you generate your own with a surcharge of whatever your service fee is, and then you just daisy chain the payments, right? And so I wanted to kind of see that ecosystem of third-party applications being built, like sort of layer 2 applications on Bitcoin. On Satoshi's place. We didn't really see it come to fruition, unfortunately, but that's the idea behind what you're saying. Like, if there's a fiat conversion or something like that, because we're kind of like on this interoperable protocol, then technically speaking, like, you know, if you think that you can implement something like that, then go ahead, and then, oh, by the way, make an API for it, and now suddenly everybody else can plug into that system.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of goes more broadly with Bitcoin and Lightning gaming as well. So I think this idea of one unit of account and very interoperable across different services. So let's say you've got different gaming sites and they're all using Bitcoin Lightning. Well, now it's kind of easy to kind of take out from one site, put into another. It just kind of all flows more nicely. So talk a little bit about that and kind of the broader sense of where you see that going.
Well, I think as the ecosystem grows, eventually we start kind of getting a circular economy going, right? The idea is that even on Koala Studio in its current incarnation, like you know, you have some Satoshis there, and okay, well, maybe you can't withdraw it to your own node because you don't have liquidity or whatever. But hey, guess what? Like, you can use it to pay for some Blockstream stickers or buy a coffee somewhere or something elsewhere, right? It's like the idea that, and that's just like talking about the Satoshis and Lightning payments, but for the fiat on-ramps, it's the same thing. Like, eventually, I think like the what's the word? Let's say optimistic outcome, or like the best outcome that we can get to is the point where, like, oh, I don't need to like jump back into fiat anymore. And I think we are sort of there in certain patches. Like, certain people already earn in Bitcoin, and then you know, they use services like Bitrefill or what was the name? The one with the Amazon.
Purse.io or one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's still a way to go.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's really cool that it all drives towards that idea of Bitcoin, the reserve currency, and it may even become kind of, it may start in certain patches, as you say. So it may be that Bitcoin is the reserve currency of the online gaming world.
Yeah, well, with the online gaming, the reason why I'm super excited with it is because I see sort of the 10x innovation in the peer-to-peer things. Like with I'm not saying that everything else isn't worth looking into, but the merchant adoption thing, you know, like trying to replace POS systems and with just like saying, hey, use Bitcoin or Lightning now, like it's very challenging, especially in the West. Not only in the West, like even in China, where you have like WeChat, it just works everywhere. It's just like, it's very hard to compete with that user experience because it's actually pretty good already. You know, tap and pay and contactless and those things. And then you have Gresham's law, which is another one that bites you, right? It's like the incentive to spend Bitcoin over fiat
It's
is
quite
not
low, yeah.
right. You might as well spend your shitty fiat first and keep your scarce Bitcoin, right? And so that's why I'm really focused on like, okay, what are the applications and the use cases that you don't have an alternative, and that's where I see like the kind of the main adoption coming from. And so, for example, for Bitcoin, it's like sovereign money, right, and privacy and a store of value. I think that's like the biggest use case. But with Lightning, now we have a different security trade-off that gives you different properties. And so what are the features that those properties are gonna excel at?
Yeah, right. And I think it also can be really cool to just see how it sort of evolves out, right? Like, so we might see more and more of a tipping culture into, because right now we have a bit of a tipping culture within Bitcoin and Lightning.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily exist in the broader world and in the broader internet yet, but it may come one, because right now most of us are kind of people who are like into this stuff, so we know it now. But imagine, you know, a few years down the line, once some of this technology is a little bit better and it's easier to set up with a proper sort of wallet that can both send and receive, like, and is non-custodial. And then imagine like kids who are like 14 and they're like playing games online and they can quickly send each other Satoshis, you know, or like they want to donate to their favorite streamers online like that. All this is some of the possibilities that I could see coming.
Yeah, I mean, the demographic is another huge one. It's like, you know, we're building for the next 100 years and we need to look forward, right? And so to me, it's like, it's that younger generation that's coming up where, you know, iPads are ubiquitous. Like I watch my nephews and it's just like, they're watching TV with an iPad in their hand, and like, you know, it's just so natural for them. And so I think Andreas talks about this a lot, like how like the you know, the kids nowadays are gonna like go up to the bank at like 16 or 18 years old and say, hey, I'd like to open a bank. It's like, I need to what? And then you're only open until what? And that's, yeah, to me it's you know, they're just gonna leapfrog all of that, and they're gonna start using Bitcoin and Lightning like at an early stage, so that by the point they reach adulthood, it's just like, it doesn't make sense to use anything else. And with gaming specifically, like, it's pretty cool because it's like, it's a younger demographic that you're aiming for anyway, and so you know, they're more likely to adopt new technology. There's actually barriers of entry for them, so you know, it just makes a lot of sense to me.
Excellent. So let's talk then about what the opportunity is with Koala Studio. So have you got any ideas in terms of what is coming up in terms of games ideas or development ideas for Koala Studio?
Yeah, I don't know how much of it I can share.
Okay, sure.
We've been like, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, we've been working on our fundraise. So we were over at, actually flew over to Boston. We're like MIT Bitcoin Expo, and it's just been consuming a lot of our time. So we haven't been able to like build out the vision that we have. So we have like a very well-defined strategy for the next year. And you know, even for the next 3 or 6 months, there's like certain things that we want to like build and release and like come out with that. And I'd rather like talk about them like once we're ready to like
Sure, yeah.
ship it, right?
Yeah,
rather
sure.
than just start talking about promises. But yeah, I mean, our aim is to build out this vision of Lightning Network powered games, and we don't know if we're going to be building the games ourselves yet, but that's not off the books. We're definitely in talks with like a lot of people about these ideas, and it's just like, it requires a little bit of not lateral, but like just different thinking about what are the possibilities and like what can you do now that you have this technology. It's like, I don't know. It's like saying, oh, somebody invented the combustion engine. Like, what can you do with it now? And you start like figuring out the use for it, right? So a lot of like the mainstream developers and gaming, the people in the gaming community aren't really aware of the possibilities, but also the limitations. Like understanding like what are the technical limitations with the technology, and like what are the like the paradigm shifts required in like the user experience. And so we're very much like looking at that angle to kind of like, so the main objective is to kind of scale the production of games. Let's say, like, I want to see a lot of games and a lot of ideas and a lot of applications in general being built on Lightning. So basically focused on that side of things, is how can we enable that to happen quicker rather than slower.
Yeah, sure. And look, turning now to Bitcoin and Lightning more broadly, what's on your wish list for Lightning updates or technology around that?
I used to have the sig hash no input hashtag like, for a couple of months last year, then I took it off because nobody was like interested. But oh, there's a lot. Like Schnorr is like probably the biggest one that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, sig hash no input L2, and then on the Lightning front, like AMP, splicing, channel factories. What else? Availability. Like, I think infrastructure-wise, there's a lot of work required in you know, on an enterprise level, you don't want to be relying on a single node. Like, fingers crossed, like Satoshi's places have been pretty stable, but it's like you want to have redundancy, right? You want to have a couple of nodes that you can fall back on in case there's a failure. And so there's work required on that. There's work required on backups. There's work required on like the dashboard and system administrator tools. Like I know a lot of people have been talking about LN Dash and RTL recently. I really like RTL. I love the work they've done, and I use it for my LND node. But it's pretty early. Like there's like a ton of things that I say, oh, should add this, should add that, and yeah, so improvement there. Services, you know, swap services, liquidity services, like what Lightning Labs released recently.
Loop.
Yeah, similar to Bitrefill Tor, and what Pierre Richard has done with his liquidity service as well. Things like that. What else? I'm probably missing like another 10 things, but yeah.
Yeah, but I think they're probably some of the key ones that we're looking for from a Bitcoin and Lightning. Well, more from the Lightning point of view there. Yeah. All right. So look, I think it's time. It's time for a game. We're gonna have to play a game of Lightning chess. So one sec, guys. Let's while we just get the screen share going.
Let's do this.
All right. All right. So I've got Koala Studio. I'm just gonna share my screen. So hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so this is the Koala Studio website, and you've got like your account here. So you can go. So you've got like your activity, your sats if you want to make a deposit, withdrawal settings, so on. So that's kind of the basics there. What I'll do now is I'll set up a new game, and then I will share that with you in the chat. One sec. Okay, so let me just copy paste that in.
Oh, by the way, you can actually like use your own URL if you change it manually. But if you want to do
right, as in you can type in there.
Exactly. If you change that last string,
so I can literally just change that to like that.
Yeah, and now I'll be able to join that if.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll just paste it in. All right, it's on, guys. Okay, me versus LightningK0ala.
All right, cool. So
all right, here we go. All right, I'm opening with G3.
Oh, damn, you're starting already. Over on the right, there's a thing that's underneath the U. I'm gonna wager a bet. So let's
Oh yeah,
do how many
I think.
sets you gonna do?
All right. Yeah, let's do that. 450 sats.
Right, I'll accept that.
Wow. Okay. Here we go.
Oh
All
wait,
right.
shit.
It's on.
Wait, I don't have enough balance on this account. Damn it. All right, do 230 because I'm
Oh yeah. How do I?
prepared. I'll do it
Oh,
right
okay.
here.
You do it. Okay. So just for the audio listeners, we are just betting a number of satoshis.
All right, let's do 200.
Okay. Cool.
Accept.
Let's do it. You might need to get more time though.
Yeah, it's fine. All right.
Okay. All right. Koala goes for D6. I go for G3. I go bishop to G2.
Damn it.
All right. I'm going pawn to E4.
Uh,
Okay. All right. I'll take your pawn. Castle. Okay. I'll move my knight out to H4.
oh, what? Stupid. Damn it.
Oh, I think you might have just blundered your bishop there, Koala.
I did. Bollocks. No.
Okay. All right. I'll go bishop to E4.
Oh, damn.
Oh, damn. Okay. Fine. I'll go take the knight. Retreat my bishop. Ooh, okay. Watch out, Koala. My queen's coming in there.
Wait, what are you doing with your queen?
Oh, you know.
Do that.
Oh, you wanna trade queens, eh? I don't know
Yeah.
if I want to trade queens yet.
What's the timer, by the way? That's the one that bites usually.
All right, you're at 3 minutes 15. I've got 3:55 left of time. All right. Oh, I can. There we go. Check.
Fun is owning me. This is so bad and embarrassing.
Oh, this is not easy, man. I'm not good at this.
You're doing pretty well.
I've been
God.
playing a bit of chess recently, but I wouldn't say I'm good at this game. Oh, okay. You're okay. I will check.
Uh-oh. That's not good. Shit, what do I do? No.
Oh, okay. Good move. Okay, I'll have to take with my bishop. Retake with the queen.
Oh my God. I think
I
you
might
won.
have you here, Koala.
You won.
You lose.
Nice.
GG, GG. There you go.
GG.
Good game, good game.
200 sats down.
That was a good game. Yeah. So look, we'll have to organize a few rematches and throw out a few get the listeners playing some lightning chess as we've just demonstrated for them. That's how you do it. Look, I guess look, just as we wrap up the episode today, Koala, just tell everyone where they can find you and where they can go for Koala Studio, obviously.
Sure. So I'm usually on Twitter at LightningK0ala with a 0 instead of an O in koala. And you can check out Lightning Chess at koalastud.io. That's koalastud.io. And then there's Satoshi's Place, Satoshi's.place for some graffiti fun. That's it. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, look, thanks very much for coming on the show. I think you're doing some really cool work to kind of really show and prove out what Lightning gaming could look like. And it's a really fascinating time. We're just so early. I think in the next few years, we're going to see some really amazing things come out of this whole ecosystem. So, you know, people who are around now, you're definitely early. So I guess just from my end, I'll just say lastly, guys, make sure you press like, subscribe, share, all that. And lastly, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Stefan.